In which we live, all things are possible for every person, or so we are led to believe. Everyone strives to live well, to make money, to live a life of happiness and abundance. But for many of us, it's an uphill battle that we can't seem to win. And the reason is that deep in our subconscious, we still believe that we are here to suffer, to live in poverty, to scrimp by day. We see suffering around us and we are filled with remorse and guilt. Through awareness of the universal mind, you will discover that it is your right to enjoy life. You were born to be happy and free. Your only purpose in life is to unfold spiritually and mentally. You have the right to grow and expand, to express yourself fully, and you are entitled to all the wealth you need to fulfill this birthright. Not just enough money to get by, but everything you require to lead an abundant life. The student of universal mind power discovers that everyone can have what he needs if there is an increased understanding of the cosmos, of which our world is only a small part. Many people believe that religion today is on the downswing, but man's search for a spiritual life is as strong an impulse as it has always been, perhaps even more than ever before. The need to relate to something beyond the physical self, to something that extends past the boundaries of the known world, is fundamental. And it has life beyond anything that is blueprinted in science. What we have begun to recognize is that within ourselves resides a godlike state, a built-in contact point in the mind that we can experience as fundamental reality. It is this contact point, the point where the brain and mind of man meet Creator, that we call the universal mind. Some people call it the cosmic mind, or cosmic consciousness. This contact point is the very center of our being. It is the I, meaning yourself, and it is the EYE, meaning that ultimate source that sees and knows all. There is no duality between these. Everything is one. So you need not seek the universal mind. It is fully present and available to you at every moment. It is available because it is within you, just as it inhabits every part of the universe. Is there a more clear description of this metaphysical experience? Dr. Robert Masters and Dr. Jean Houston, a husband and wife research team of experimental psychologists, have devoted years of study to the investigation of the science of consciousness. They are two of the serious scientists who believe, on the basis of hundreds of experiments with normal, healthy individuals, that a profoundly sacred inherent capability resides within each human being. Drs. Masters and Houston use various stimuli to reach this altered state of consciousness, including relaxation techniques, meditation, and sound and light environments. The scientists are convinced, however, that the experiences are accessible to everyone and require only an ability of the individual to release his grip on externals and begin to allow the deep internal process of the mind to float to the surface. A reporter for Time magazine visited the Masters and Houston Foundation for Mind Research for a first-hand personal experience of this described altered consciousness. Without benefit of any external stimuli, other than instructions from Dr. Houston, the reporter was guided through a half-hour-long journey to the universal mind, or as she called it, her own inner odyssey. The verbal instructions given by Dr. Houston resembled the simple imagery used in many relaxation techniques. To begin her journey, the reporter was asked to imagine herself lying in a slowly drifting boat on a warm summer afternoon, lazily floating downstream, past banks green with grass and trees. The peaceful scene was suffused with silence and the prospect of wonderful things to come. The reporter experienced the imagery so strongly that she described it as a waking dream. At all times, she was fully aware of the chair she was sitting in, but the presence of the summertime atmosphere and the motion of the river were extremely vivid to her. Throughout the experience, she felt no loss of her free will, nor any dulling of her conscious awareness. She felt at all times in control of her actions and behavior. On a suggestion from Dr. Houston, the reporter's hands began to feel light and buoyant. I began flying, she said. Not literally, of course, she said, but never, except in dreams, have I felt so ecstatically the sensation of flight. Free, joyous, yet peaceful, ever deeper to the center of my being, until I was conscious of an indescribable unity within myself and with all things. Finally, she said, I felt as if I had flown to the core of life itself. This is an experience similar to that described by hundreds of people who have achieved cosmic unity between themselves and the universal mind. It is almost always described as flying or floating or a kind of sending up. It is the contact point between the inner mind and the universal I. In this state, the reporter was able to understand perplexing problems not only of her own life, but of the universal experience. She was most concerned with the problem of injustice in the world. And ultimately, after feeling a profound sorrow, she was able to know in the most fundamental way that the beauty of life far exceeds the sorrow and the injustice. She expressed it this way, quote, I was aware of my unity with all the people who have ever suffered, from the victims of petty lies to those killed by untold wars, persecutions, and centuries of mistrust and hate. But simultaneously and paradoxically, I understood quite vividly that life triumphs over all this misery, even though it cannot erase it. Life is indeed stronger than death, not just in the religious sense, but quite literally stronger than death's ultimate absurdity. I was aware of smiling and crying at once. An immense resignation and peace flooded my entire being. Unquote. The reporter went on to experience a psychological death and rebirth, which he said could only be understated in words. I knew, she said, with incredible clarity, that life is the victor in the struggle against death, not in the sense of an afterlife in a faraway heaven, but in the certainty that life is eternal despite death. I was overcome with the joy of this truth. She concluded this way, quote, Dr. Houston told me that I could return from my inner voyage when I wished, and I found myself immediately ready to do so, though the strength of what I had seen has remained with me ever since. Unquote. This woman's experience will not be the same as your own inner odyssey, but it is typical of the kind of glowing benefit that anyone can achieve, either alone or in the company of other people whenever they choose. In your daily life, communication with the universal mind takes place on a minute-to-minute basis. You will learn always to be in touch with it, always to be ready to receive its benefits. Unlike the previously described experience, your inner journey doesn't take place once in a lifetime, but continuously throughout your lifetime. The reason for this is that the experience is an awareness, the realization of the merging of all life energy. It is the knowledge that the life force that permeates the atmosphere is governed by a universal plan, a grand design, a universal mind. Once acknowledged, this awareness can allow you to live life in abundance and happiness, because abundance is everywhere. Every life force that we know has some kind of nervous system. Even the tiny amoeba, which seems to have no shape, no pattern, no design, has a purpose to its life. The amoeba is an animal of only one single cell. Nevertheless, it is governed by an interior force that allows it continually to change its shape and to engulf bits of food and reproduce itself. In man, of course, the interior system is governed by the brain. Everything, every movement, both voluntary and involuntary, is coordinated by the brain. All plant life also is governed by a kind of interior force that permits it to absorb water, food, and sunlight. We do not consider this life force to have an emotional mentality. But today we are beginning to learn that plants, like people, can experience emotions. To a certain extent, life forces seem to act independently of each other. At the same time, all of us interact together. A fascinating experiment has recently shown that there is a surprisingly sensitive relationship between animals and plant life. Many gardeners and farmers have recognized for years that human contact does wonders for flowers and trees. A little conversation and tender loving care has proved to be a remarkable growth booster. But a recent experiment has shown an even more remarkable symbiosis between plants and animals. A policeman was experimenting with a polygraph machine hooked up to the leaves of a plant. He wanted to learn if the polygraph, already known to be moisture sensitive, would register the moment water applied to the roots of the plant reached the tips of the leaves. During routine watering, the polygraph showed no change. But the police officer carried his experiment further. With the polygraph still hooked up to the plant, he burned the leaf tips with a cigarette, and the polygraph needle jumped. He placed the leaves in a hot cup of coffee, and the polygraph jumped again. Apparently, the plant registered no disturbance in its normal absorption of water, but it was extremely sensitive to pain. Then, in a fascinating extension of the original experiment, the policeman asked a co-worker to come into the room and apply a lit cigarette to the plant. As anticipated, the polygraph needle jumped. Then the policeman and his co-worker alternated their visits to the plant. The policeman would come into the room and water the plant, talk to it, even sing to it. The polygraph showed no response. Then, several hours later, the co-worker would come in and burn the leaf tips with a cigarette. Whenever he did this, the polygraph registered a sharp complaint. In only a short while, whenever the co-worker entered the room, the polygraph would register the plant's fear before he even lit the cigarette. Like Pavlov's dogs, the plants were conditioned to experience an emotional response based on the presence of an external force, in this case, when the co-worker entered the room. The experiment was extended further. Recognizing the relationship between man and plants, the policeman wondered if the plant would experience fear in relationship to other life forms. In the same room with the plants, the investigator boiled a pot of water and dropped live brine shrimp into it. Every time he dropped a shrimp into the boiling water, the polygraph registered shock coming from the plant. To eliminate any human influence, the shrimp were dropped into the water mechanically at random times of the day. Every time the plant recoiled in fear. This experiment has demonstrated beyond doubt the integral involvement of all types of living matter. With full recognition of this complexity, it is hard to believe that we function independently. And yet we are each independent, capable of governing our own lives. Quimby, a doctor and teacher of the spiritual laws of the mind, described this curious involvement in this way. Our minds mingle like atmospheres, he wrote, and each person has his identity in that atmosphere. In other words, we are both separate and together, one and all. Most of us believe instinctively that our lives are intertwined with all living matter, and that we are somehow governed by a master life force. It is a principle almost impossible to deny. It is not just a fortune. There is a master plan, a grand master plan, and each of us has a part in determining how that master plan works. We are not victims of the life force that inhabits the universe. We are instruments of that energy, particles of an all-encompassing energy, with the ability to determine our own future. Even the most hardened agnostic will say that he may not believe in God, but he believes in something. Few of us today are foolish enough to believe that we exist all by ourselves, that our planet whirls around in an empty space, surrounded only by cold stars, separated from any other life or any other form of energy, that we are all there is, and this life is all there is. The further that scientists probe into space, the greater the conviction that something more exists. We know now that our stratosphere is only part of our galaxy, and our galaxy is only one of many galaxies, and perhaps our universe is not the only universe. Beyond our world, our stratosphere, our galaxy, there stretches boundless territory, a domain governed by the same principle that governs our own planet, our own civilization, each man's individual life. It moves in a pattern from the very smallest organism to the most vast universe imaginable. This vast universe is always in motion. It is profoundly flexible, never still, always moving. It is like breathing. It is pure energy, always expanding, finding new outlets for its own intelligence and life force. We must consider our lives in relationship to this infinite motion. And when we see our world in this light, we are aware that it is an energy field of right action. Cosmic activity is unto itself. It is never wrong. It is never static. It is pure energy. Imagine yourself within the context of this very flexible living universe, a universe forever in the process of change, yet always guided by a basic intelligence, a universe that is always new, always good. Develop your awareness of new forms, new creations, and new experience, never the same, always flowing and returning to its basic source. Although there is nothing new under the sun, this moment in time is unlike any other moment. And although life repeats itself over and over again in endlessly identical patterns, each moment in time and each molecule in space is different from that which has gone before and that which will come after. This is the collective history of life. What you are this moment is the sum total of all life that has preceded you, just as you are a part of the future, and the universal mind is the all-encompassing of life, past, present, and future, the mind in infinite space. This universe has a rhythm, a pulse beat, just as your own body has a pulse. It has its own measurement of time and moves to its own integral design. As a human being, your pulse beat is established by the rhythm of your circulatory system. There is eternal movement taking place within you, a tempo of circulation. When you are well, your physical rhythm is always in balance, always in right relationship to your body. The circulation in your body is a closed system. The blood is pumped out of your heart and is circulated throughout your body, providing oxygen and nourishment to every part of your being. The blood returns to the heart and is refreshed by oxygen in the lungs, and once more it is pumped out, circulating and coming back to its source for renewal. The blood is the same, but it is always new. All life is based on circulation. To receive the good, you must send out good. If you are miserly, you will be deprived. If you share, you will receive bounty. You can improve your life by contributing to the circulation rather than cutting it off. We will see later how often we cut off circulation and limit flexibility in our lives, and thereby cut off opportunity for enrichment. And we will also see how flexibility and circulation can be encouraged, how we can each contribute to the natural fluidity of life by getting in touch with the universal mind. The universal mind is an instinctively perceived governing force that affects each. It makes each a part of the whole, a part of each other, and also a part of the source of all power. There is a connection between each individual's mind and that point in time and space we call infinity. And that point is the universal mind. All life is connected to the universal mind, the source of energy, which reaches each of us in varying degrees, depending upon our receptivity. It is important to understand that this energy is always positive. There is no such thing as a negative force. There is only what the mind makes negative. The power that comes from the universal mind is all good, but this good can be distorted when receptivity and flexibility are blocked. There's the story of the boy who wants to go to college, but he doesn't have enough money. He sees the other boys in the neighborhood going off to school, and his ambition and resentment increases. He says to himself, "It's not fair. I want to go too." So he goes out and robs a bank so he can go to college. His desire to go to college was basically good, but he distorted the basic good by violating the laws of society and the golden rule. There were any number of ways he could have approached the same problem and committed. but his receptivity was blocked. Another boy in the same situation wanted to be a doctor. He thought only of becoming a doctor. He saw himself as a doctor. He imagined putting up his shingle outside his first office. He considered himself a doctor. And all the while, he used his powers of concentrated focus. He connected with the universal mind, and this connection sustained him. It was totally real to him. Through all his years of medical school, when his goal seemed so far away, he worked. He worked between classes and after school. He swept offices and worked in the cafeteria. And he went to medical school. He had as much money as he needed. There was always a job somewhere. And as long as he maintained his connection with the universal source of energy by using his own inherent creative powers of imagination, he had all the energy he needed to do this overwhelming job. And that's what one person did. Before we talk about specific treatment for universal mind power, let's talk about you. The whole you is not encapsulated between your hat and your shoes. We are always conscious of our physical being and often aware of our unconscious mind, because today we are all very psychologically oriented. But there is a third part of the mind, the superconscious. And it is in the superconscious mind that our ideals, our inspiration, and our spirit resides. And it is in the development of the superconscious that we begin to reach the universal mind and begin to see how it can help us achieve our life's desires and goals. The universal mind is completely accessible. The only thing it takes to reach it is an awareness of its possibilities. We are living in an extraordinary, wonderful age in the life of the universe. But what good is it doing us if we have no money? Or if we have a bank full of money, but are in the last stages of emotional bankruptcy? Or if we are sick physically? We strive for cures to illness, poverty, mental anguish, and we fail to go directly to the source for the cure. Shakespeare wrote, "There is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so." Remember this phrase, because it is the key to the universal mind. You are an expression of your beliefs. You are, as Quimby has said, belief expressed. You and your mind are one, and you and the universal mind are one. Everyone is born with some kind of limitation. It may be the restrictions of poverty or racial prejudice or a physical handicap. It may be psychological, physical, or material. Yet it is these very limitations that can help you learn to grow. And how you grow depends on your receptivity. We know joy because we can feel sorrow, and we seek freedom because we are repressed. Remember that it is your right to be free, to fully express yourself as you are, and to live in health and happiness. That is why you are here. And whatever limitation you have in your life can be overcome by opening your mind, establishing a clear, receptive path to that great abundance that is available to you. How can you reach the universal mind and make it work for you? We talked about superconscious mind power, and this is the tool with which you can reach the universal mind. Universal mind power can become the decisive force in everything you do. It can bring you financial and emotional riches. It can bring you good health and emotional well-being. And it can help you conquer your fears and frustrations. You must want to use and reach an open mind and a free imagination. And you must allow universal mind power to manifest itself in you. Positive achievement for yourself and those around you must be your basic wish. There are a few fundamental principles that can guide you in reaching the universal mind and fully developing its potential. Universal mind power is not something you have to turn on and off. It is always there. Once you recognize the connection, it will always be available to you. Imagery and imagination are the complete key to this connection. What you perceive in your mind's eye is what will happen. The thought is the end. Remember, there is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. When you think positively, you keep the path to the universal mind open. The first step is to think clearly about what you want to achieve. The universal mind does not grant one wish, but all wishes. But you must resolve what the changes are that you want to make in your life. Are you suffering from a lack of money, from ill health, from loneliness, from anxiety or frustration? When you recognize the nature of your problem, you can begin to see where your path to the universal mind is blocked. Once determined, you must properly construct your desires. It helps to make them specific and to the point. Single out the very core of your request and focus on that single idea. Make all of your concentration positive. Say to yourself and believe that all your financial and other needs are met at every moment in time. There is always a surplus, always more than enough. Whenever negative thoughts intrude upon your concentration, you don't have to fight them. The effects of positive thinking are well established in all scientific literature today. But even those of us who are aware of its powerful healing effect can accidentally slip into negative thinking. In order to use the positive power of the universal mind, you must fully recognize negative thoughts when they assail you. Some people are so conditioned to thinking negatively that they don't even notice when they're doing it. So you needn't fight the negative thoughts. Simply know that they are not true. Guide your thoughts back towards positive affirmation. Simply continue to repeat the positive to yourself, even if it seems difficult. The positive thought is always stronger than the negative. It will soon begin to fill your mind and take over the negative feelings. Negative thoughts can sometimes be overwhelming, and it would be false to say that they don't bother us. They do bother us. They are destructive. They are the reason we are in trouble. But you must remember that they are not real. Each time, meet them with a positive, firm conviction. There is abundance in your life. Everything you need is available to you. The relationship between your own mind and the universal mind is like an echo. If you stand in a canyon and call out, you will hear your own voice and an echo of your own voice coming back towards you, surrounding you. You will hear the echo of your own voice in the voice of the universal mind, which envelops you. Your mind and your thoughts are reflected in the universe. They travel in the universe, are magnified, and come back to you. Whatever thoughts you send out comes back. If you call out negatively, negative vibrations come back to you. If you call out in joy and in positive awareness, more joy comes back to you. Cause your thoughts, your ambitions, positive. Open the door of your mind to the idea of abundance flowing through you. Wealth, health, energy, power, all the things you need to lead a full and happy life. Every successful businessman understands this principle. In fact, every successful person in any walk of life has this positive idea as the basis for his achievement. A businessman never tells a client that he isn't sure about filling an order. When he feels doubt, he fills others with doubt. When you are negative about yourself, others feel negative about you. The principle is simple and totally correct.
Universal mind with positive thought, you must be sure that your conviction is thorough. You must not approach on two levels. You must not say you are going to prosper and a few minutes later complain because you don't have enough money to pay the rent. The two ideas cancel each other out. And the second idea, that you don't have enough, is very destructive. Be faithful to your positive affirmation. Believe in it. Cease uniting your thoughts with negative fears and worries. Instead, link up with the positive action of the universal mind. When you concentrate fully and positively, you leave the path open. You are open to receiving all the help the universal mind can supply. Your universal mind power can flow freely, circulate fully. Nothing can prevent goodness from manifesting itself in you. This is where your imagination comes into effect. When you concentrate positively, imagine the end result. When you imagine the end, you have willed it to be possible. In a simple example, if you have trouble concentrating on your work, imagine yourself sitting at your desk working. Picture it. Believe it. You needn't say that you can work or that you will be able to work tomorrow. Simply say that you are working now at this very minute. Here's an example of how one woman made her universal mind power work for her. Her marriage had quite suddenly broken up, and her husband had left their home. She did not know his whereabouts, and for all intents and purposes expected that he was gone forever. This woman desperately wanted her husband back, but instead of sitting around feeling sorry for herself, she put her universal mind power to work. She focused on his return, using all of her mental images to conjure his presence. She fully believed that he would return. Every night she set a place for him at the dinner table. She never allowed doubt to enter her mind. She went about her life just as if her husband was present, supporting the imagery by creating his place at the dinner table. And one night, several months later, she set his place at the table, and her husband walked in the door. The thoughts conceived in the mind are directly linked to the events occurring in your life. What occupies your mind is what is attracted to you. Fear creates fear. Anxiety creates anxiety. Guilt creates guilt. Guilt over one sin, for example, can bring on accusations for a sin uncommitted. When a person feels guilty about any one thing, he feels guilty about everything. He loses sight of the single act that has caused him to feel guilt. There is the story about the honest bank teller who was having an illicit affair with another man's wife. Although he suffered great feelings of guilt about this relationship, he could not give it up. One day, embezzlement was discovered at his bank, and he was accused. He was innocent, but he felt so guilty about his affair with the woman that he brought accusation upon himself. And he felt guilt about the theft, even though he had not committed it. Guilt is a generalization, not a specific. The two sins were connected irrevocably in the bank teller's mind, and because of this feeling of guilt, he attracted the accusation to himself. He had been condemning himself and accusing himself, and he attracted accusation from others. Things looked very black for him. But he had advice from a friend who was a practitioner of the universal mind power. Feeling considerable shock from the situation, the bank teller followed his friend's advice and immediately cut off his relationship with the woman. He began to apply himself to connecting with the one source of all good. He repeated over and over again, "There is nothing hidden that is not revealed." And eventually, truth prevailed. The whole matter was resolved when unexpectedly another man was discovered as the thief. Does this mean that you are not allowed to make mistakes? That you can never make a single false step in life? Indeed not. It only means that what you feel and think is magnified in what happens to you. If the bank teller had had no guilt, he would not have been accused. Fear and anxiety can also create physical illness as well as mental distress. How can we apply the universal mind power to better mental and physical health? Is curing illness within the scope of this power? The answer is definitely yes, because sickness of the body is directly linked to the mind. How can we use our inherent mental powers to build good health and drive out thoughts that bring on physical illness? How can we get in touch with the universal mind and build self-generating, self-perpetuating mental and spiritual health? Just as with other areas of our lives, having a limitation can help you grow. Appreciate abundance. If you have felt despair, you appreciate happiness. And if you have been sick, you can appreciate being well more than the person who has never been sick. Healthy people take good health for granted and tend not to recognize the benefits of the universal mind to aid health. For example, the healthy person who smokes 2 packs of cigarettes a day probably sees no reason to stop, even though cigarettes are doing hidden damage to his body. That person would be better off if he was a little bit sick. Then he would look for ways to cure himself. Illness that gives a warning sign can be a great asset in helping you develop your universal mind power. You must understand that there is no good or evil in the body. The physical body has no such qualities of its own. The body is an instrument for you, the I within you. Psychiatry has taught us that we must look at health from a body and mind relationship. With knowledge of the universal mind, you can add yet another dimension to healing, the universal source of energy. This doesn't mean that you shouldn't see a doctor if you are sick, or that you needn't eat well and rest well, but it does mean that when you are sick, you must consider the condition of your mind. View yourself as a complete entity, physical body governed by mind and spirit. Your spirit, that point that reaches the universal mind, is the ultimate governing force of your whole being. The energy that drives your body is that abstraction called emotion. Good news, for example, creates an energy response in the body. So does bad news. That energy flow is far more complex than the mere secretion of adrenaline. That flow is the electrical current of life energy. Famed psychologist Theodore Reich knew about it. He wrote and lectured all over the world on this inherent life force. And he was put in jail, and his books burned. Not many years later, however, scientists have returned to this fundamental principle. Reich called this life force orgone. It is the principle of a life energy that exists and permeates the entire universe. All life functions within the impulses of this energy force. In fact, the energy force is life, nothing else. And the fundamental manifestation of the energy force is emotion. Emotion that you cannot see or touch. Emotion that you can only feel. But feel how? With what? Not with your fingers. Feel with your spirit. Emotional feeling is the strongest, most powerful energy that exists, and every form of life possesses it. Yet it cannot be identified concretely. We sometimes call it instinct, or a hunch, or a flutter in the pit of the stomach, or a twitch, or nerves, or anxiety. But most often we simply call it feeling. We feel happy, sad, tense, nervous, angry, resentful, joyful, generous. We all experience these feelings, and everybody knows what you're talking about when you say the word feeling, even though it has no physical characteristic. But feeling exerts a powerful effect on your physical body. It has now been proved beyond any question that emotions and personality patterns affect physical health. There have been several well-documented scientific studies that prove this to be true. Historically, medicine has recorded the effects of personality on such illnesses as tuberculosis and asthma. But today we are learning that all illness may be emotion-dependent. For example, recent studies have shown that with information on personality, psychiatrists could diagnose physical illness better than medical doctors. In a 40-year ongoing study at the Chicago Institute of Psychoanalysis, investigators have been studying emotional problems in people who are physically sick. They have learned that the asthma sufferer often fears losing a parent, and the person with a nervous skin disorder frequently has an unfulfilled desire for physical closeness. They have also learned that a person suffering from rheumatoid arthritis doesn't cope well with feelings of aggression. This person suppresses his aggression and at the same time manipulates others in a kind of benevolent tyranny. When the person whom he dominates is for any reason, the person develops arthritis. People with hypertension are described as having feelings of repressed hostility. They are over-conscientious and take on more work than they can handle. They live in a state of tension and resentment. Hypertensive people frequently have had temperamental childhoods where they were forced to control temper tantrums. As adults, they developed a submissive attitude that covered up their resentment. When a Nebraska psychiatrist, Dr. Floyd Ring, began personality research at the University of Nebraska College of Medicine, he was frankly skeptical of any specific correlation between personality and physical disease. But Dr. Ring has now studied more than 400 patients suffering from various ailments, and he has changed his mind. During brief personality profiling, Dr. Ring's subjects were instructed to give no information about their physical symptoms. In fact, throughout the interview, their bodies were kept covered by a sheet so the doctor couldn't even see them. Based on personality alone, Dr. Ring was astonished to learn that he could make an accurate medical diagnosis of the vast majority of the patients with a 15-minute interview. As a result of his investigation, he was able to divide the patients he studied into 3 broad personality categories. He called them the excessive reactors, the deficient reactors, and the restrained reactors. For example, a person was asked what he would do if he was sitting on a park bench minding his own business and a stranger walked up to him and kicked him in the shins. The excessive reactor wouldn't wait for an explanation. He would jump up and punch the stranger in the nose. In this category, Dr. Ring found victims of peptic ulcer, degenerative arthritis, and heart attack. The patients who responded that they would do nothing at all were classified by Dr. Ring as deficient reactors. In this group were patients who suffered from neurodermatitis, rheumatoid arthritis, and ulcerative colitis. And the restrained reactors were people who characteristically responded by saying that they would feel very angry, but they probably wouldn't do anything. They restrained or repressed their feelings. These patients most often suffered from asthma, diabetes, migraine headaches, hyperthyroidism, and high blood pressure. When you are feeling happy, your body is relaxed and free. But negative thoughts have an adverse effect on the body. You can try this experiment for yourself right now. When you are tense or upset, your stomach muscles usually tighten up. Right now, wherever you are, tighten up your stomach muscles and hold them in that position. You can feel the pressure begin to build up throughout your body, all the way up to your jaw. Now, release the muscles and relax. Immediately, you feel much better. When emotions govern your muscles, you are usually so concerned with what you are feeling that you don't even notice the terrible strain your body is suffering. A mere tensing of the muscles of your abdomen puts pressure on all the vital organs of your body. And when you clench your jaw, the tension runs from your head right down to your toes. When you erase negative emotion, your body automatically relaxes. When you exercise your universal mind power, you won't allow negative thoughts to cloud your emotions. Do not allow yourself the indulgence of negative emotions, no matter how justified you may believe them to be. Get rid of them, and get rid of them now. They are hurting you. In their place, insert positive emotions. Open up to the universal mind. Believe in the good because it is true. If someone or something is causing you to feel resentment or anger, believe that they are good because they are also a part of the universal mind. There is no negative. Believe it. Everything that is closed, restricted, repressed blocks your reception to the universal mind power. Open the channels, open the windows, open the doors, free all the paths to communication. Believe that all these open pathways will bring only good. This is the way to start your universal mind power working toward new and lasting good health. There are many ways in which to reach the universal mind. Those who are experienced need only to be still and allow themselves to feel the presence surrounding them, because the universal mind is always there, easily accessible. Beginners can apply various simple techniques to help them get started and to get in touch with universal mind power. Relaxation is the easiest and the most effective of these. Lie very still in your bed at night, consciously relaxing every part of your body, from your toes to your head. When you are fully relaxed physically, begin to use constructive, positive imagery. Picture in your mind exactly what you want to happen. Reflect on the truth of the universal good, a profound energy that suffuses everything with a feeling of good. When you make the connection with universal mind power, you will feel the energy flowing through your body. It cleanses all impurities and makes your body totally healthy. All that is offensive to your body removes itself. You have no anxiety, no tension. Your body is completely free to receive positive energy from the universal mind. After good health, the need most of us place high on our list of basic requirements is enough money to live happily. Those people who are rich want to be richer, and those who are poor want to be rich, or at least better off than they are. At the same time, we've heard all our lives that money is bad, that it's sinful, that it is the root of all evil. There is a conflict in our thinking. Let's set the record straight. There's nothing wrong with money. Money is wonderful. Poverty is the problem you want to watch out for. The moment you realize that money is wonderful, you will begin to have more money in your life. You have to learn to like money, like to have it, and like to spend it. You must learn to release money freely, with the knowledge that it will be returned to you in even greater sums. This doesn't mean that you should be foolish in your spending. Using credit cards and charge accounts is not the same thing as spending money that you have in your pocket. It means that you should be generous and sharing and open-handed. If you are not receiving money in your life, you should try to become aware of something in your consciousness that is blocking the circulation of money. Say to yourself that you want and appreciate money, and that you will receive money freely. Say to yourself that you are not afraid of money. You enjoy it, use it, benefit from it. Be flexible and stay open to the idea of having money. If you have 50 cents in your pocket, spend it. If you have $100, spend that. If you have nothing and someone invites you out to dinner, go. You don't have to worry about taking from other people, because you are a person who also gives. Flexibility and circulation are the key words. Be willing to give, to share, and money will come to you. There is the story of the woman who began to hoard food at the beginning of the Second World War. She went out and bought up all the coffee and sugar that she could get her hands on and hid it in her cellar, because she was afraid that when rationing began, there wouldn't be enough for her. One evening she went out to church, and when she came home from her prayers, she found that burglars had broken into her house and stolen her hidden supplies. And they also took her silver, money, and jewelry, too. Why, she complained, did such a terrible thing happen to her? And when she was at church praying. Well, can you understand why? This woman's fear of going without was so great that she attracted the thing she feared most. Her fear of loss attracted loss, just as those who fear being cheated will be cheated, and those who fear robbery will be robbed. And to make it worse, the attraction is magnified. Not only were her supplies stolen, but all her valuables as well. So you must maintain circulation in money as well as in every part of your life. Even though there is a natural law of abundance at work in the universe, many people harbor an attitude of restriction. They say that they want to be rich, but subconsciously they think they should only earn $80 a week. The universal mind takes us at our own evaluation. When you increase your self-evaluation, money starts to circulate in your life. Do not make the mistake that money comes only from work. You can look around you and see the obvious inequities that exist in that concept. The person who labors strenuously 40 hours a week may take home less money than the person who sits behind a desk and talks to people only 20 hours a week. What is work anyway, and how do you measure the value of work? How is a person's worth related to the work he or she does? And how can a price tag be put on it? People who receive enormous salaries receive the money because they are considered worth that much money. And the reason they are worth it is because they believe they're worth it. When you are convinced you are worth more money, then you can walk into your boss and ask for a raise, and you'll get it. But you have to sell your subconscious first. Believe that you're worth it. When you think about money and work on your subconscious feeling about money, You needn't think about it in exact amounts. All wealth is relative. All you have to know is that the universal mind has plenty to spare. It works from the law of abundance. If you're like I am, you don't just want enough money just to scrape by. You're tired of just meeting the current bills. You want a little to spare. And that is the way the universal supply works. There is no law of limitation. You should always have a little more than you need. When you connect with universal mind power, you must put your thoughts into positive pictures about money. Think of yourself as a person who has money and as a person who spends money. Say to yourself, I like money. I am rich. I spend freely and receive freely. I will always have as much as I need. In these mental instructions, be careful not to put your mind in conflict. If you say to yourself, I am wealthy, when you only have a dime in your pocket, your subconscious cannot accept this illogical idea. How rich can you be if you only have 10 cents? Such thoughts cause confusion and may even cause your financial condition to worsen, because the subconscious mind will accept the dominant of two ideas. In this case, the fact that there is only a dime dominates the idea of wealth, because it is stronger and more true at the moment. So you must concentrate on a message that is logical. You can say, I am becoming richer, feeling richer, or I will be richer tomorrow than I am today, or money is circulating in my life. These ideas provide a territory where your conscious and subconscious mind can get together and agree. So if you say, every day I am moving forward, richer, then you are talking a language that your subconscious can understand. When you have advanced to the point when money is really circulating in your life, then you can say, I am prosperous, and say it with conviction, because it is now the dominant reality. Even when you have achieved your goal, it is important to continue to reaffirm this right action. In this way, you will maintain the circulation you have built up. Later on, you may be able to dwell on 3 abstract ideas throughout the day without any modification: health, wealth, success. Whenever your mind is wandering or out of focus, draw it back to these 3 words. Again, this is the advanced condition when you are completely familiar with the connection between yourself and the universal mind, when you have been able to achieve growth. Then you can concentrate on simple, positive action. Until then, make your thinking process a building one. I am feeling better than yesterday, and tomorrow I will be even better. I am growing, expanding. My wealth is multiplying. Remember that money is good. It is wonderful, and you love it. Do not be envious of other people's money. Be happy for them, and in your happiness, you will start to reap financial benefits for yourself. Always be aware that you are worth plenty of money, and you shall have plenty of money. Should you learn that someone else is getting rich dishonestly, don't worry about it. They will be stopped by their own negative action. You enjoy money and you use it wisely. You are generous because you know that money will come back to you. Say to yourself, I always have enough to meet my needs. There is no blockage in the universal system, and there is only surplus. If money isn't coming to you, it is a human condition. Look to yourself. Like universal energy, money is a flowing thing, and you must open up the channel of receptivity. Think about what you have to do to have money circulating in your world. You should always have enough money to be able to do what you want at the moment you want to do it. That is wealth. Once more, there are many ways to reach the universal mind. In the beginning, before the connection between your mind and the power of the universe becomes automatic, you may want to use some of the tools recommended by various mind control groups. These include chanting, meditation, yoga, and relaxation exercises. These methods are all means to achieve the same result: oneness with the universal mind. When you are experienced in the feeling, you'll be able to make the universal connection whenever and wherever you want. It is an automatic, inherent response within you. It is you. It is perhaps in its simplest explanation the full realization of yourself in relationship to the cosmic forces of the universe. The fundamental law of this relationship is found in your relationship with other people. The golden rule says, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you." The universal mind carries this even further. It says, "Think about others as you would have them think about you." Everything that you desire for yourself, also wish for every person who lives. This sincere wish for happiness and abundance to all people is the key to the universal mind. If someone else gets a promotion or a raise or achieves success, be glad. When someone you know has good fortune, that is a good sign for you too. It means that there is fortune surrounding you. A person who has wealthy and successful friends attracts wealth and success to him. Quimby said, "Man acts as he is acted upon." Whatever you claim as true for yourself, claim for all people everywhere. You can see that what you think about yourself affects your life and what you are. And how you think about others affects what they are. For example, a group of school children in Boston proved the point. When their teachers expected them to do well, the students scored high on examinations. And when the teachers expected the students to fail, they did fail. Can you believe what a strong influence your thinking has upon other people? And what a strong influence others have upon you? We are wedded together, all of us, inseparable by our thoughts. And the person who thinks well of others receives their good intention. So it is to your benefit to rejoice and be glad in the progress and prosperity of all men, because you are one with them.